Life can sometimes be incredibly calm, and we feel safe until one unexpected event turns everything upside down. I never thought my wife, Sarah, was capable of such a thing. She was an ideal for me, but what I learned made me question everything I believed in. If you want to hear the true story of betrayal, of how I discovered the truth, keep listening. I couldn't even imagine that my world would be destroyed by one person I loved more than anyone else. And I'm not talking about the man I found out about later. No, I'm talking about my wife. I thought everything was in place in our relationship, and nothing could shake it. But I was wrong. Sarah and I had been together for several years, and I thought I knew her like the back of my hand. She was an intelligent, beautiful, caring woman, and we had built a relationship that seemed perfect. I was certain that my love for her knew no bounds. We met in university courses, and I couldn't take my eyes off her from the first day. Her laughter, her way of communicating, her confidence, all of it captivated me. I began to realize that I had met the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And so, a few years later, we got married. It seemed like the best thing that could ever happen to me. But everything started to change after we bought our first house. She began to become more withdrawn, often busy with work or meeting friends. She always looked tired, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought it was normal, as we all go through tough times from time to time. However, the more time passed, the more I began to feel that something was wrong. She was no longer as open as she had been before. Was it just a period of stress from work or our new life? I couldn't say for sure, but something told me it was more than just stress. One day I came home earlier from work. It wasn't anything unusual. Sometimes I came home early to spend time with her, but what I saw made me start to doubt. Sarah was sitting on the couch, and her phone was lying on the table. She didn't notice when I entered, and when I got closer to the table, she immediately grabbed her phone as if it had become her only support. It was strange, as she had never held her phone so carefully before. I couldn't help but notice it. Something was off. I didn't ask her right away, but doubts started to form in my mind. Why did she react like that to my simple arrival home? I had observed her reaction several times, and each time it seemed more and more suspicious. It wasn't just stress or exhaustion. It was an invisible wall that she was building between us. The next day, I decided to talk to her. But when I tried to bring up the topic of her phone, she denied everything as usual. "It's just work messages," she said. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was completely different. Were my suspicions unfounded, or had I simply lost trust in her? Later, I decided to follow her. It wasn't the best decision, but in my mind, there was no room for doubt anymore. I decided that I needed to find out the truth. And one day, when I saw her meeting that same man, I felt that I couldn't stay silent any longer. I stood nearby the cafe as she approached him. She smiled, and he responded with the same. My heart stopped for a moment. I felt my legs grow heavy. It was the same man who seemed to appear in her life constantly. Why hadn't I noticed this earlier? Why didn't I ask? How could I have been so naive? I saw them laughing together, and that was the last straw. From that moment, I realized that I could no longer ignore what was happening. Returning home, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I was broken, angry, and at the same time, I felt completely helpless. All these years, I had believed that Sarah was my best friend, my supportive partner, and here I was, facing a reality I couldn't believe. I told her that I knew about the man she had been meeting. My words hung in the air, and Sarah just sat there, silently looking at me. I saw her face turn pale, but she didn't say a word. I knew she wanted to deny it, but her eyes, full of despair, told a different story. Now it was important to get an answer from her. I couldn't allow myself to leave this question unanswered. My hand trembled as I tried to control my emotions, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Just tell me the truth, Sarah." "I have the right to know," I said quietly but firmly. She began to say something, but her words were meaningless. She couldn't find the words to justify herself. It was painful because I knew that she hadn't just lied to me once. This was a huge lie that had lasted for a long time. I couldn't help but ask, "How could you, Sarah? How could you betray me like that?" I couldn't let it slide. My conversation with her wasn't over, but I felt that this story needed many more stages. After learning the whole truth, I decided to see him. I decided that I needed to understand who this man was and what he had that I couldn't give Sarah. One evening, I was walking down the street and suddenly saw him. It was him. He was the same man Sarah had been meeting so often. And then I realized this wasn't just some random acquaintance. It was something more. He was a part of her life, and now he had become a part of my world, a world I hadn't even suspected. My heart stopped as I approached him. He didn't notice me at first, but when our eyes met, I saw his face change. He even tried to escape, but I managed to get close to him. "What have you done to my wife?" I asked. It wasn't just a question, it was an accusation. He started to justify himself, but I couldn't hear his words. My thoughts were only about how he could have such a relationship with my wife, with my Sarah. How could he have intruded into our life when I may have been blind to what was really happening? I couldn't leave it like that. I came home and told Sarah that I had found the man she had been cheating on me with. Then her face changed, and I immediately understood. She couldn't deny the truth. She confessed. At first, she tried to deny it all, but I saw her eyes. I saw fear, guilt, everything that was in her heart.
I was alone, Mike. You changed. You became different. I felt lonely, and he was there. He understood me.
She said. These were her words, her explanation. I listened to her, and each word felt like a knife to my heart. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a betrayal, a blow straight to the heart. How could I not notice how we both were drifting apart? She continued. She said. These were her words, her explanation. I listened to her, and each word felt like a knife to my heart. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a betrayal, a blow straight to the heart. How could I not notice how we both were drifting apart? She continued. I felt that I could no longer trust her. I began to question everything we had built over the years. My wife was the closest person to me, and now I couldn't understand who she really was. She said she regretted it, that she wanted to fix everything. But I didn't know if I could rebuild the relationship that had once been so perfect when I trusted her. My trust was shattered, and all I saw in her eyes was remorse, but I couldn't feel any hope. All those years we spent together now seemed like just one big lie, part of which I hadn't even noticed. I began to think that maybe our love had been nothing but an illusion, built on my own fantasies. I started doubting everything. I felt that I could no longer trust her. I began to question everything we had built over the years. My wife was the closest person to me, and now I couldn't understand who she really was. She said she regretted it, that she wanted to fix everything. But I didn't know if I could rebuild the relationship that had once been so perfect when I trusted her. My trust was shattered, and all I saw in her eyes was remorse, but I couldn't feel any hope. All those years we spent together now seemed like just one big lie, part of which I hadn't even noticed. I began to think that maybe our love had been nothing but an illusion, built on my own fantasies. I started doubting everything. What happened between us will stay with me forever. Maybe one day I will be able to forgive her. Maybe one day I will return to her. But for now, I understand that some things cannot be forgotten. Sometimes we learn the truth we don't want to hear. Sometimes we have to go through the pain to understand how important it is to preserve trust. It was a hard lesson for me, but I have learned to accept it. I still don't know what will happen next. Maybe this is the end of our story, or maybe I will find a way to get through it. But as I said, it will never be the same, and we will probably never be the way we once were.